now they're asking you, what are you bringing to the table? I think this is even one of the best things. When you're interviewing people to join Voez, they're being asked, what are you bringing to Voez? Of what value are you in this world? Whether it's at your workplace, whether it's in the family, whether it's everywhere where you will go. People tend to even get close to those people whom they feel they are of relevance to them. So to me, this passage, it's more or less talking about the relevance of us as human beings in the kingdom of God, in the kingdom of heaven. So just as it is saying that if salt loses its taste, then no one is going to use it. If maybe sand was tasty, I'm sure I would have been using sand in our food. But because it's not, we are okay with just stepping on it because it has no value to us. It doesn't bring any form of value in our lives, to our food. So it's the same way, even in the kingdom of God, we need to be Christians who are relevant to the kingdom, not just Christians who follow just because, okay, um, just because let's say you grew up in a family that goes to church every Sunday, you are just going just for the sake of Daji wasakalipe or mami wasakalipe. I know that there's a stage when that happens, especially when you're young. But now when you grow older, you should try also to seek a personal conviction. Try to understand your faith a little bit deeper. Try to understand what Catholicism is, and if you get to have that love for Catholicism that comes just from you alone, it will be easier for you to work even in the church. So, what is it that you're doing for God in the church? Are you someone that is bringing more people closer to God? Are you someone that is driving people away from God? Okay, the talents that God has given you, how are you using them to benefit not just yourself, but also the kingdom of heaven? Because that's what those talents are for. That's why they were given to you. They were not given to you so that you should become popular. They were given to you so that you should use them to glorify God. I think this is what it's saying in the last part here. To say, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. It's not so that everyone should praise you. I think this is the other thing that we forget. Yes, you may discover that you have a great talent and you have this light within you that needs to shine. But now, instead of you making that light shine for God, you want to make that light to shine for yourself, which is very wrong. So we are not here to make ourselves shine or for ourselves to be glorified, but we are here to use what we have that God has given unto us for that to shine, for that to glorify God rather. Yeah. So that's just what I want to say, and just so we can also be proud of our song. There's a part of our song where we sang "Akristu wanzanga." 𝐠𝐫𝐴Zane 𝐤𝐜𝐜𝐥𝐞𝐬𝐢𝐚 If you understand Nyanja, you know that that part is actually exactly what this verse or this chapter is talking about. Okay, so let's just
So so I'm not alone in the room. I'm with my sisters, and they're also they're also listening. Okay, so what I can share is we first understand what the salt of the earth really means. It seems simple, but when we look at it, it's a very big term. And when Jesus used it to his disciples, there's really some meaning that he wanted to carry out in what he said. So, as Christians, we are called to be the salt of the earth. When you look at what salt really does, it is used for seasoning, adding flavor to food. It is used for purification. It is used for preservation. So it can preserve food. And as Christians, God is calling us to preserve the good, the true and beautiful elements of humanity as God created us, following his commandments and loving each other just as he loved us. When we look around, there's a lot of hurt around us. There's a lot of the bad seed being planted everywhere. How are we planting that seed? Is because of maybe we're because of envy, because of jealousy. When someone does something good, we wouldn't want to appreciate that goodness. We don't want to put it out to say, okay, what you've done is good. And when we say that, it really encourages someone to continue doing what they're doing. But rather, we would keep quiet, rather, we would bring in negativity, shunning away what they're trying to bring out. Hence, being the salt there is not used. Then, Jesus is calling us to be the salt of the earth and really emphasizing the positive impact and influence that his followers should have on the world. Um, we may be encouraged to act as a preserving influence on the world, counteracting moral decay and corruption. So when we look to say there's something wrong somewhere, we are supposed to jump in and highlight to say this is not good. Let us do this for this thing to continue. Let us say this for this thing to do what to continue. But rather we keep quiet and say, okay, tuone kwa mini waenda. Let us see where this is getting us to. And we keep quiet about it. So God is calling us to be that which preserves something good, something true, and something beautiful in the elements of humanity. But then again, Jesus is also saying salt is used as a seasoning to add flavor. Salt adds flavor to food. And in the same way, we as Christians, like Tamara said, are called to bring a positive and enriching influence to the world, making it a better place for everyone. How do we do that? By following the commandments, by encouraging one another, by being pilgrims on a journey. When someone falls, we pick them up. Not we condemn them. We allow as saying to say, Baja Onankoni, because she got pregnant, because she didn't do the sacraments, she cannot get back to the church. By Voez, they are not allowed. We shun them away. Instead of bringing them closer, we ask why they did. Somehow we wouldn't want to even ask, but embracing them because we don't know why people get into certain situations. That some situations are not called for. They're not something that we get ourselves into deliberately. But out of certain situations, I'm like Dr. James. Sometimes post certain things on his status. Sometimes he says we go through different situations, not knowing what your friend is going through. We just have to be kind to one another, which is very true. We don't know what someone is carrying, what burden they're carrying, or what baggage they're having. But because of our pride, because of what can I say? We are always too personal with our things. We're not even thinking of outside. We're not ready to open up to anyone. We think everyone is okay. Sometimes you might be going through certain situations that you take it into bitterness. So because of that bitterness we are carrying, we want everyone to share the bitterness instead of opening up to everyone who is, because sometimes people are even failing to open up because they're not ready to be laughed at. They're not ready to have their weakness shared publicly. They're not willing to have their vulnerability stamped upon them. So we are taught to add flavor into our lives, into other people's lives, so that when they see us, they see the glory of God. When they see us, they see God's light. And that is what God is calling us to. Then the purification part, where he says, for purification purposes, Jesus might be suggesting that his followers should strive to bring moral purity and righteousness to the world. This is not to think you are special in any way. When he said you are the salt of the earth, when you just look at salt, ngati mulibe mvakudya imve kati salt mulibe mu dish. No matter how much spices you can put, no matter what kind of meat you've cooked, as long as there's no salt, it won't taste good. But salt doesn't boast out to say, just because I'm not there, everything will be sour. No, we shouldn't think we're any special compared to the others. We are all unique, and we should embrace such uniqueness in one another. That way, we'll create a better place for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, James, you raised up your hand.
Yes, thank you. I also want to add something to this Bible passage. It's one of my best Bible passages actually in the Bible. There are several, of course, that I know even most of us have, that there are several. But I wanted to add as well. So I don't know. Maybe I can begin with this question, guys. Do you really feel or think like if you are acting in a good way in a certain group, do you really feel like everyone will be happy? Maybe I can ask Mary Zimba, when you are doing a correct thing in any of your groups, do you find it to be very easy? Have you always found it to be very easy?
No, it has never been easy actually. There's a lot of criticism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you do something to mean well for them, then they will go behind talking about you. Akana 𝐬𝐜𝐵𝐾𝐬𝐿 just goes kamba kamba chizungu. If it's me, the English even comes out, right? Like they will make you feel because you've gone to school, you know better than them. Even when what you're doing, you just want the thing to go well so that everybody can be educated or can be better than they are today. So it brings about jealousy, it brings about hatred. Yes, others who understand you, they will say, yes, what she's trying to do is okay. But for those who are not in the same place with you,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they have seen that you've started talking to the person they like, the hatred even grows even more. You see, it's true. I'm not lying. It's even true to a point where I don't know. There's just hatred. Ima
Yeah.
peze kaede. So I think we don't have to stop doing good. We have to continue. At the end of the day, we're not doing it for those who don't like it, for those who are being helped. So you
Mm-hmm.
just have to continue. Yes, sometimes it hurts. Teja kuti wakwiya chewa bakukamba kamba everywhere. Nakwiya nokwiya monga ni kwaya yao. Okay, we go through a lot. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mary Zimba. The other question is maybe Elizabeth, if you have seen something is going wrong in a group or whether at home, do you find it easy to speak out or challenge someone? Do you find it easy to gather that courage?
On my part, I'm outspoken. I
Mm,
hit the nail on the head. I go ahead and tell someone off if they're misbehaving or they're doing things in an appropriate manner. Yes, but
yeah,
I
but
say it in a good way. But then there's some level of seriousness because I joke a lot when I'm home. But then for them to take me serious, yes,
mm,
I have some seriousness. Yes.
okay. Yeah, so thank you very much. So I asked this because most of the times when you try to be the salt of the earth or the light of the earth among your peers, number one, you have to be ready to be seen like a reject. You have to be ready to be seen like someone who just wants to be, against whatever other people want to do. For example, you're in a choir group, then everyone is saying we should uh, we should put on black. Just something as simple as a uniform. We should put on black. All of us we should put on black. Meanwhile, on that particular day, for example, maybe it's Pentecost, but maybe you have got a new uniform which is black. Everyone wants to put on black, or blue, or green. And then when you just stand out to say, no, just our uniform should also preach to people to say today we need to put on red, or we need to put on white. Just something as simple as that, for you just to bring out guidance to people. You will already be seen in a certain group that you are kind of not part of them, like not part of their team, like you're trying to be a goodie. So it takes courage. It takes more than courage to speak out when your dad is doing something wrong in your home, when your mom is doing something wrong in your home. Imagine you are in a certain setup of a home where you're just being kept there, and then you see whether it's your uncle, whoever is keeping you. Maybe it's having an affair somewhere, or maybe doesn't leave the children in the right state. It is very difficult for you to come out and speak out because so you might even be chased panganda if you speak out. It's the same even at church. At some point I was in a certain group somewhere, and then you know, in that group we had some people who, like Mary Munda has said, or other people, we had some people who in their lives were already bitter. They were bitter, maybe things didn't go well the way they wanted, or maybe they were older than the others, they were kind of bitter. So now what used to happen was, if any new member, especially ladies, if any new lady comes in who maybe does things rightly, who can be outspoken, who can at least answer against them when they are saying something wrong, or who just shows traits of being a bit popular than them because of doing something right, they'll try by all means to bring out that light in her, to turn off the light in her. So they'll, maybe just the way they look at her when she's talking, or maybe not wanting her to have room, if it's in a choir, not even wanting her to conduct, they just want to be the ones to conduct, so they don't want other people to come on board. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is, if you want to be the salt and the light of the world, you definitely encounter opposition. Opposition will always be there. So that's the first thing that you have to tell yourself, that if I'm going to be the salt of the earth, I will encounter opposition. But now, when you encounter opposition, where are you going to get your strength? So at the end of the day, if you really want to continue having that strength in you of encouraging people, of leading people, of standing out, of being in the gap, of being there leading people, you definitely have to be very, very prayerful. You definitely have to be checking your ways as well, because you cannot lead people when you yourself, you don't see things from afar, you don't see things from different angles, because you'll be getting off guard. They'll be catching you off guard. You do something without you thinking very deeply about it, you're going to find yourself being off guard, and people cannot follow you when a bad example has already been passed about you, or is being passed about you. When bad examples are passed about you, you cannot be the good example at all. So we have to be very vigilant in the things that we do. I also gave another example last time, to say, if you're a leader and then maybe your dress code is not good, if you're a leader, maybe let's say you're a guy, and then maybe let's say you're a choir master, a choir conductor, we look at your trousers, unakachunachuna ka trousers, unakachunachuna kukunsi nikafupi, and then you want people to follow you, want people to take you seriously. They cannot take you seriously because already just the way you are looking, the way you are dressed, you don't look serious. You're a guy, you're a lady, but when we look at just your hair, the way you dyed your hair, it is maybe blue throughout, it's blue, and then you want to be a leader, you want people to take you seriously, to say, no, mutima abantu bakonka mutima. Yes, people follow the heart, but even your outside appearance also matters for you to be the light, for you to be the salt of the earth. And then your ways of life, how you talk to people, also matters. There is this famous saying, which I again just googled out, by St. Francis of Assisi, who said, preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words. Preach the gospel at all times, preach the gospel, and only when necessary, that's when you use the words. So this is very, very important, in that it's trying to tell us that actually the way we live our lives is how we are preaching the gospel. It's how we are being the salt and the light of the world. And then only when it's necessary, that's when we can use the words. But if we are just an empty gong every time, we are just talking, but our ways of life are showing something else, it's highly unlikely that you can motivate anyone at all. Imagine you joined Voice of Ecclesia, and then the people that you find in Voice of Ecclesia where you have joined, they're doing things contrary to whatever you thought would be there, do you really think or feel that people will continue being in that group? Definitely they will leave, so you have to ask yourself every time as a leader, that wherever you are, say, am I doing something which people can follow? You can have dark areas here and there, but at the end of the day, you need to start changing those dark areas to gray areas until they become white. No one is really purely white, and no one is totally a good leader. But at the end of the day, if you're doing good things and if you're striving towards perfection, people can still see. It is visible. You don't have to just use words every time. No. And then another point that I wanted to make, it's also inspired by Father Arthur Templar's preachings, where he was trying to tell us to say, when you see your brother or your sister in distress, don't be silent, don't be still. So you can move yourself to people. You can also be the light or the salt to people just by getting closer to them. You can do the little that you can to ease their load, to ease their burden. That will be also the salt. You may find someone is having maybe Mkongol and no one even is caring at all. So it's basically about us human beings being empathetic. When we say empathetic, it's more like if you're a leader in your group, in your choir, let's say in Voez, you try to start going through maybe one by one, or maybe you assign yourself like this month I'm looking at maybe just 5 people or just 7 people who I'm just trying to analyze in my own thoughts, like how are they coping up with life, what might they be lacking. You just think of them in those lines to say, how is this person managing, coming all the way from that place, and maybe is unemployed, or maybe just got a very bad situation last week, maybe just lost a mom or anything like that. You try to be empathetic and you try to be closer to them. You try to do something at least for them, just saying a hi to them. You would never know, just you sharing a 5 kwacha with someone when he or she comes to Voez to do rehearsals, just you sharing a simple 5 kwacha to say you can use this maybe for your airtime or for your transport. Even if it will not be enough, others will give them transport. You never know, it will go a longer way than you thought wherever they are going. And then again, us being the salt and the light of the world, we do not have to underrate anybody. That is another thing that also ends up making us not to be very good salt and light of the world or the earth. There are some people who we have already judged that they are lower than us. We are underrating them. But the thing is, nobody knows the strengths exactly of someone. You cannot know exactly my strengths and you cannot know exactly my weaknesses. Not until you have related with me. Not until you have known maybe even my past. Not until you have even known what I'm going through. Not until you have even known maybe what my dreams can be or what I'm thinking of doing. And you cannot know them fully again at the end of the day. But we have people who always think or feel like maybe their Christianity is higher and they want to be the ones to share their Christianity. No, sometimes you can get closer to someone and try to listen to what they are saying. Just by you doing that, it is also you showing the relevancy of someone, in their lives. You are showing the relevancy to them being in a certain group, or to them relating to you or with you in that manner. So guys, being the salt of the earth is something which is very, very much difficult, but if we try to use these techniques that I've just tried to explain, of getting closer to people, of understanding that they might also have something, of us being empathetic, of us gaining the courage, and of us strengthening ourselves through prayer every time, it becomes more like a bit less. And then someone has also said that you don't have to expect that people will clap for you. Sometimes the people who dim your light, it is not even people out there who are not in Christianity. It can be a priest who can actually dim your light. It can be a deacon who can actually dim your light. There was someone who had gone to sell some flash discs somewhere, and then they started being told about our music, to say, "Hii music yanu 𝐬𝐤𝐿 𝐸𝐵𝐮𝐩 𝐸𝐾𝐜𝐿 for example, and then if you are not strong, you start questioning yourself, is it true that this music is just revised? So again, you have to know your grounds at the end of the day to say, is what I'm doing really correct, or it's not really correct? But otherwise, in my experience myself, just for example, the issue of doing with Voez, I've actually encountered more opposition from people in the church than people who I want to preach to. I've actually encountered more opposition from people who I expected would be helpful than people who are a bit away from Jesus Christ. So who we can consider that they are a bit away from Jesus Christ, because obviously we consider priests or other people who are closer to Jesus to be too close to Jesus than others. But the things that you are going to encounter when you are trying to be the light or the salt of the earth are actually the same people who want to be the salt, or who feel are already the salt or the light of the world. So now it's more like you people who are salts of the world, you are now competing. You people who are the light of the world, or who should be light of the world, you are now competing. At the end of the day, you do not do your work at all. So these are some of the precautions that we have to look at actually when we are doing the work of God, to say, have I actually lost the way because of just someone who is also seen as a sort? In the end, we just need to hold hands. Tamara has already said about our song in the sub chorus, where Kristo anzanga tigwirizani, kukhala mchere. We need to you need to be united. That is the biggest weakness that we have in Christianity today. You see in other religions, I don't know that if there is really this problem of division, self division within yourselves. In the end, you fail to preach. In the end, you fail to convert your societies, because you are trying to showcase yourselves to be more lighter or to be more salty than the others. You start you start this division of saying maybe baligi is better than Waana, maybe Wakatolika is better than SDA. That is not important at all. That is useless to the goal of salvation. That is useless when you are trying to convert someone from Satanism. How will that help that person being converted from witchcraft to being a normal person? How will you fighting that being a league is better than St. Anne, or being a whatever is better than whatever? So at the end of the day, it's just about Christianity. Know your goals that we have as Christianity.
Okay, ziko kwambiri. Bible passage yatu ya lero ineyanilisa mumene namene understanding yakuti ise ndise mchele wa pano paziko la pansi. So example imene ningapasireko nyakuti mwamene bakambirapo kudala venango apa njakuti ise bakristu muno mdziko la pansi la amene tilimo, for example Catholic, tifunika taonekera pamene tizili paliponse banthu ofunika batista identify taonekera na chikhulupiriro chathu pamene tikhulupirira, mwamene tipempherera, tifunika tankhala proud of our Catholic faith. Noti kuti tikaona banthu venango monga ba SDA ba Watchtower ngati batista approach ngati batisponsor pamene batisonsavire vanhu timayamba kangiwa kambiri and inachitapo observe ito. So mwamene timangalira chabe apa vinthu vene vimankhala maningi mwamene tinavomerera kuti ise ndife Catholics mumpingo wathu tifunika tankhala vanthu pamene vachita defend mwamene tikhulupirira chikhulupiriro chathu cha mukatolika ndiye chikulu maningi icho, and vanthu vazaziwaniza kuti uja amene ali paja ni Catholic already tichita kudala taonekera kudala tasonyeza chisanzo pamene tilili kuti uja ali paja ni mukatolika. Kulibe vilango vene vingachite bwanji vingatikange yaye. And during that time kumankhala mafunzo inango vazambotiseka siwonse vazambokondwera, awe ise tipempera Maria, awe ise tichita vaso, but provided ise ngati chikhulupiriro chathu tinkhala nacho tichiziva mwamene tilili, and vambiri vene vimachitika ise macatholics onse amene tili muno from the word go pamene tinabwera nkhala vobatizika tinavombera vonse malamulo ya chikatolika amene tilipo vonse vene vichitika mukatolika monga bible sharing amene tilipo iyi apa pamene tikanisana apa is one of them kugawirana mawu kupembererana na kupempulana muchikristu ni chinthu chinango chamene chili important kucheking'ana not really every time ngati mufuna kuti muone munthu until mwamupasako something moni chabe uli chabe important umachinja munthu face ya munthu amankhala wochinja bwanji bwino bwanji uli chabe bwino umoyo bwanji you don't have anything to offer but at least uja munthu apezeko na munthu amene achita chani amene amukambisako from there mwinango azabwera azampasako maganizo enango because vene timapitamo ni vambiri tevanthu so mwamene ningakambireko chabe mwachidule pa time amene mwatipasirako iyi otherwise niyamikira maningi and tikati kuphunzirako kuenda kutsogolo zikomo kwambiri.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this Bible sharing. And I wanted to share a practical example which Father gave us last time, where we had water in a glass, an egg, then we had salt. We had a glass of water symbolizing the world, then the water inside symbolize let me just say the water inside symbolizing the challenges that we have, the glass, the world, and then egg, us, then salt, which is Jesus. So vanatenga manzi aja noyatira mu glass, then tenga egg noiponya mu glass, then ija egg inashita chani inaenda direct ina sinking in that water. Then the other example, vanaika mo salt muli manzi aja, then an egg was put in that same water, then egg ija inamba floating, I didn't sink in that same water. So ija chani chi egg inaenda floating mu manzi muja mwenzeri be salt, that's why inashita chani inaenda meaning mwenzeri be chani chi mwenzeri be umulungu uli wonse, that's why chani chija egg inaenda ku floating muja ma challenges, that water which symbolizes the challenges that we are passing through, ma challenges ya metipitamo. That's why ija egg inaishita chani ina sinking up, because there was no Jesus in that water. But after adding salt to that water, which symbolizes Jesus, that salt, ija chan egg inaenda ku floating pa mwamba pa manzi. Meaning if we are salt to other people, meaning other people will not face challenges. Are we the salt ourselves? Kushendise salt kuli bantu. Ngati ndise salt tibatandizira munjira bwanji. Ngati ndise light tibalangiza tishita bintu va bwanji kuti vazive kuti ndise light to the world. So ngati ndise salt pamene taenda vantu sivafunika facing ama challenges, vantu vafunika kunkala na peace. Na vamene tiganiza timaganiza chani, vane timaganizira vanzatu ngati taenda pali vanzatu nongo kumanyumba nga wankala weka shetimankalako na time yoganizira ku vanzatu. So if we are light and salt, tifunika kunkala ma good example pamene tankala vantu vafunika kunkala na peace. They need to feel that love when ngati tafika pa vantu. They need to have that freedom. Not pamene taenda vantu, we call ourselves to be the salt of the world, to be the light of the world. Pamene taenda vantu vamba kunjenjema, pamene taenda vantu vambo peza na chance manje yotineni. We need to lead by example. Let us be like the salt which was put in that glass for the egg to float. So that ma challenges yonse amene va facing abantu yashita chani siya drainer, siya gwesa. Stephen ko gwesa abantu mchikristu chatu. If ngati ndise salt. So tinkale a good example. And that practical example really touched me. Say inga bwandi hapa batiramo che salt, batiramo salt egg ya floating up.
but mwenze libe salt ya bwaya end. So you see the power of the salt. There's power in that salt. Are we the power to the
people have a blessed long weekend. We'll see you next. Bye. Trampoline. La trampoline makamba. Okay.